Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 28th, coming at you at 3:30 p.m. My hair's a little askew. I've been working hard today. I've been sweating. It's hot outside. I do work, like labor, okay, sometimes. And so, my hair's a little askew, but that hasn't slowed me down from bringing you guys the amazing information I have to share with you today. Of course, as always, please support us. Go to Brewed, the coffee shop here in Lexington. Go to brewedco.com, BREWEDCO.com. You can go to shop.brewedco.com, donate.brewedco.com, and just show us some support if you want to. But the number one way, guys, you can share us some support is to hit that share button. If you're listening to this on the podcast, this is always available as a podcast. If you don't want to sit here and listen to me the whole time, go check it out. Fresh Brewed Kentucky Politics is the name of the podcast, of course. Check it out. But I encourage you, if you really want to support us, share it. Tell your friends about us. Share it out there. I do this for you guys. So give us the shares, and thank you so much. We're going to go into today's news. There is some major shadiness going on with the Fayette County Public Schools. We're going to dig into that. And old Tyler Murphy's at it again. I mean, we all know, well, at least I know about the rumors about the 120 Strong buying him bourbon, expensive bourbon that he never claimed that was a gift there. I know about that. We can talk a little bit about who Tyler Murphy is, because he's kind of shady. He's really shady. He's kind of really shady. We've got the Kentucky here. Bashir's making noises like he's going to start offering incentives for you guys to get vaccinated. Of course, around 30 universities around the country requiring it for return. We're going to talk about that. And Tennessee says their emergency is over, ends the ability for anybody to require masks at the county level. The mask mandate has been in Tennessee for a while, but they stopped being able to require it because they ended the emergency for COVID. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about this Tyler Murphy guy. Now, Tyler Murphy is a board member of the Fayette County School Board, elected member. Now, there was some rumblings and things, and I don't know if anybody ever filed a complaint. If somebody wants to, I maybe have some proof of it, that Tyler Murphy was bought a expensive bottle of bourbon that he never claimed from the 120 Strong, which is like the teachers union before the teachers union officially formed, which formed here in Kentucky. So we do officially have a teachers union, but he's back at it again. This interesting character's back at it again. Okay. So Tyler Murphy, while sitting on the Fayette County School Board, is now sitting on NEA, the National Education Association. That is the largest teachers union in the country. It's actually the largest union in the country. It is the largest white-collar union as well. So we have a member of Fayette County School Board is sitting on the board, the national board of the largest teachers union in the country. And for those who don't see the obvious conflict of interest of that, let me explain it to you this way. Let's pretend for like 1 second. Let's pretend that UAW, United Auto Workers, there was somebody sitting, for all you pro-union people, let me put that in perspective. Okay, let's pretend that there was a member of the UAW board that also was a board member of Chevy. Well, obviously, they have an incentive, a profit incentive in that case, to Chevy, and you, if you're pro-union, wouldn't want a board member sitting on both the union and the Chevy because, of course, he has an incentive, a profit incentive, to not give you what you want. Well, remember, in public education, there's no profit incentive. Tyler Murphy, the board member, has no reason to save money. So while he's sitting on the Fayette County School Board, which, remember, is the people who negotiate and approve teachers' contracts, they are a part of approving teachers' contracts. He's also sitting on the largest teachers union board, the largest union board in the country. The person who is arguing, who is signing the contracts, is also the one proposing the contracts. Guys, this is insane. And if he's on the National Teachers Union, his incentive is not a profit incentive to work out the best deals, in my example, to Chevy, because there's no profits there. Remember, these people don't produce anything. Education has no incentives to you. They have no incentives to the students either. The board has incentives to keep teachers on, and if you have somebody on the union board that's arguing back the other way, you cannot tell me that that is not a conflict of interest. Of course it is. You can't have the person who's signing the contracts, negotiating the contracts from the other side with their incentive to favor the other side because, of course, the teachers are the ones that get them elected and the unions are the ones that give them money. I mean, when school board elections have so much money in it. So you have Tyler Murphy, Fayette County School Board member, and remember, guys, my son goes to Fayette County Public Schools, so this matters to me. And remember, guys, Fayette County Schools is already receiving more. And you know, we already don't like public sector unions because the people negotiating the contracts, they're negotiating with our money. And also, too, their hands are tied if a budget's set, but they're demanding more money. They got to raise our taxes to pay for it. So it's already public sector unions are pretty shady. But here he is sitting on both boards. And so one of the other Fayette County School Board members, Stephanie Spires, says, hey, that's shady. That's not cool. What Tyler Murphy is doing, sitting on both the Fayette County School Board and the union board because they are at odds with each other at times, which of course they would be. They're at odds with each other at times, but because of that, I think that is an obvious conflict of interest. Now, legally, and so what she did was she asked the Fayette County School Attorney to give them an opinion from the AG, okay? So they turned to the AG, and supposedly the attorney for the AG, for the Fayette County School Boards, reached out to the AG and said, hey, listen, I need a opinion. And supposedly what they're saying is that they took too long to get back to him. So the attorney that reached out was Shelley Chatfield, okay? And so Shelley Chatfield reached out to the AG's office, and the AG's office sitting there saying, hey, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to take a while. That's what they said. So, because they decide time was of the essence because they're trying to find a new superintendent for the schools or what have you, hiring, they end up saying, well, we're going to seek our own opinion. So they go out and they hire this guy who Chenoweth, Bob Chenoweth. Sorry. Now, who is Bob? Well, Bob worked in the AG's office for 12 years, wrote a lot of educational law. However, Bob also worked in the AG's office for Democrats. In fact, he has ties to donating to the Bashirs. But Fayette County Schools reach out to him with reportedly a contract, as I'm seeing it, dated 12/3/2020, okay, that they are paying him, supposedly, because they suck and received board approval back on 12/3/2020. I got the contract right here, for $30,000 plus. So this attorney that they went to get an opinion on whether or not this is a conflict of interest, not the AG's office, as they're required to do by law, but instead they go to a guy that worked for Democrat AGs and who donates to the Bashirs, hired him, paid him $30,000, I guess. That's what it looks like to me, according to the contract that I'm reading. Paid him $30,000 to come back with the opinion that Tyler Murphy, sitting on both the union board, the National Teachers Union, the largest teachers union, the largest union in the country, and being a board member of Fayette County Public Schools, the people who are negotiating and creating policy that could be in conflict with each other, don't have a conflict of interest. Well, I tell you what, that $30,000 opinion ain't worth the paper it's wrote on. Legally, the AG of the state needs to be the one who's making that opinion. And so I tell you what, I think Stephanie Spires, who said he needs to step down from one or the other, I think that needs to be the case. We're going to get a petition going here to put a little pressure on these kind of shenanigans because it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous that we have to have this conversation. Of course, it's a conflict of interest. And he needs to step down from one or the other. If he wants to stay in the National Union Board, then that's fine. He can stay on it. But he needs to step down from the Fayette County School Board or vice versa. I do not care, but he needs to pick one. Because I got a feeling that ain't no good things going on. Like I said, we already have evidence that he's receiving gifts from the pre-teachers union that he did not record. I'm just saying, Tyler Murphy's up to no good, and he sounds like a terrible individual to me. I've never met him. I'm not here to pass judgment on him in that way. From what I can tell, though, any individual that has this level of conflict and doesn't want to step down from one or the other sounds like a terrible individual to me. And I tell you what, that $30,000 opinion, I want my money back. I want my money back. That is my taxpayer dollars that paid for that $30,000 decision that ain't worth crap. I want that money returned. I want Tyler Murphy to give me that $30,000 back because this is ridiculous. It just is ridiculous. I cannot believe what I'm hearing of the Fayette County School Board. Or Fayette County Public Schools and their board and them sitting there. It's just, the whole thing is preposterous on epic levels, and it's ridiculous. It just is ridiculous. Anyways. I'm sorry, I'm real fired up. My kid goes to those schools, so I'm real fired up about it. I'm real fired up about it because my kid goes to those schools, and they say they need more funding, but they're dropping $30,000 for an opinion that isn't even worth it because you need it from the AGs. This is terrible. Tyler Murphy, you're terrible. You need to step down. You need to step down. One or the other. Pick one. Either you're for the unions or you're for the schools. You can't be for both, bud. You can't negotiate the contract from both sides. It's ridiculous. Moving on. Sorry, I'm fired up. Fired up. Go ahead and give us a share, though. I'm moving on to Kentucky talking about vaccine incentives. But as you're watching, go ahead and hit that share button. I've got around about 100 people watching live total on YouTube and Facebook. I expect many shares. I expect many shares when I get off this microphone and I go, look how many shares I got. I'm looking at you guys. Anyways. Kentucky is, sorry, I got so fired up, my throat got parched. Kentucky's offering incentives for being vaccinated. Slippery slope. I don't know if you guys read the article that I posted about this, but it is a slippery slope we're talking about here. This is why. So we have a, they're going to start like just paying. So West Virginia started offering $100 saving bonds, state bonds, which, you know, with that the rate inflation's going, they may not be worth much. State bonds. Anyways, West Virginia is offering $100 state bonds if you go get vaccinated. So they're literally giving you $100 in West Virginia bonds to go get vaccinated, which is almost like monopoly money, but whatever. Anyways, and so they're literally trying to bribe people. Now, what's most preposterous about this to me is, of course, that's our taxpayer dollars, and they're just giving it back to us. You know, and like I said, they're spending our taxpayer dollars on an advertising campaign to get these shots that our taxpayer dollars are paying for into arms, and then they're paying people taxpayer dollars to do it. And so it's like we're funding our own demise. We're funding our own demise. And I was thinking about this today, too, as I was doing my laborious work that I was sweating on doing today. I was thinking about this. Thinking to myself, I said, how does the government having a advertising budget not being involved with propaganda, right? How's that not viewpoint discrimination? So there's a thing. So the government cannot get into viewpoint discrimination. Basically, that if you hold that this opinion, this political opinion. So, for an example, in my case, Cooperrider v. Beshear, we held that Beshear should be impeached, but we got charged for that. But if you send in a petition that says Beshear shouldn't be impeached, you wouldn't be charged for that. That would be viewpoint discrimination. You're treating viewpoints differently. Well, if they're running a vaccine campaign to get vaccinated, but there's people who don't want to get vaccinated and have the viewpoint that vaccines are actually bad, and, you know, really the science hasn't been fleshed out on this, how is this not viewpoint discrimination, spending money on a political agenda like this? I don't know. Now, a lot of people ask me, Andrew, why do you think they want to get these shots in arms so badly? And I've got a couple reasons why. In Beshear's mind, here in Kentucky, I believe Bashir wants so many people vaccinated because he thinks that's how he's going to get reelected. He thinks, and mark my words, during his reelection campaign, he's going to be out there saying, look at all the vaccines I got out to you people. I saved your lives. The other problem is now imagine, stay with me here. If a lot of people already have COVID, plus they're getting vaccinated, and we end up all having a natural immunity, we only need to get like 40% vaccinated, what that proves is already somewhere around 50% of us already had COVID. That's a bad look for the government. 50% of us already had COVID, and we didn't know, and COVID starts to go away. The government then doesn't get to claim they solved your problem. See, if the government doesn't get to solve your problem, you don't ask government to solve your problem anymore. Government loses power. They want you to want government to solve your problems, so you elect people who want government to solve your problems. And if government doesn't get to solve COVID and it just goes away on its own, they don't get vaccines out there, then you won't elect people who want government to be bigger. You won't elect Democrats and socialists and communists that want government to be bigger, that want to solve your problems and want to grab control and say, look at me, I'm the one who pulled you out of this, follow us, vote for us, we saved you with our government vaccine. The problem is that if they don't get us all vaccinated fast enough and COVID goes away, you're not solving the problem. Or if we decide we're going to live our lives anyways and we've just decided, you know what? The survival rate's really high on this. I don't, though COVID's an issue to be concerned about and take protective measures, and for you to be aware about, especially if you have comorbidities, right? Though that is the case, I don't think that a lot of people will be identifying it as not a big problem. In fact, you're seeing that in the vaccination numbers. They are struggling to get vaccinations done. And that's why they're moving into these incentives. But the question is first they bribe you. Then they try to force you. And that's my concern. Because even in the article where Bashir was talking about it, he said, we do not believe we're at the group of people who will not get vaccinated yet. We need to capture the people who just aren't getting vaccinated because it's not convenient. And by creating these incentives, they might decide to go get vaccinated. But what if he's wrong? See, remember, guys, weeks ago, a lot of you guys were thinking to yourselves, he'll hit the 900,000. There's enough people willing to get vaccinated. He'll hit the 900,000. It's not playing out that way, though. I think you guys are seeing it. I mean, vaccines are going down and down and down and down because everybody who already wants it has gotten it. I mean, we've got health department officials being like, listen, everybody who wants it's gotten it. Like, we have a problem that a lot of people don't want to get it because, quite frankly, you're not idiots. Most of you aren't. I mean, I come across people who are idiots, and my favorite thing to do is to ask them, like, okay, according to the CDC, which only counts confirmed COVID deaths, how many deaths under 20 have been in Kentucky? I had this conversation with a gentleman the other day. He's like, oh, no, like 100. I'm like, 0. It's 0. It's 0 deaths. And they're like, what? 0? 0 deaths? Oh, my gosh. They make it sound like it's so many more. And it's just not the case. It's just not the case. There's not a lot of deaths out there under 20, under 30, even under 40. So where do they start requiring vaccines? I mean, obviously, employers right now, because it's under emergency use authorization, cannot require the vaccine as a part of employment. Once it gets approved, which they're already trying to approve it so it's not under emergency use, which I'm sure we can trust that process. There's no incentive there to speed it up if you're the government. Anyways, so once that's the case, private employers can require it. But right now, because it's under emergency use, they can't require it, and neither technically can public universities. However, I just read an article about 30-some universities requiring it to return in the fall. Now, if they're a private university, they can legally do that, I guess. They can legally do that. However, I see a problem. And so for those who don't know how the university systems work when it comes to dorm rooms, let me explain it. At least like University of Kentucky works this way. And considering there's a lot of companies out there that do this, I know that this is more than just University of Kentucky who does it. So what University of Kentucky does with its dorms is they build their dorms. Then they lease the dorms out to a company. In this case, I believe the company that has UK's dorms is Greystar. Greystar, then, the people who are leasing the dorms from UK, they lease it for an amount of money, and UK guarantees them a level of occupancy. And that's in their contract. They're guaranteed a level of occupancy. And then Greystar operates the dorm room. So they handle campus life. They run like UK's campus life. They run, they collect up the monies to students are paying for the dorm rooms. They actually provide the cleaning and the turn work over the summer. The RAs work for Greystar. The dorm room managers work for Greystar, right? That's how it works. It's managed by a private company that is leasing the dorms from the university. But the university has a contract with that private company guaranteeing them a certain level of occupancy. That's why you see a lot of universities requiring freshmen and sophomores to stay in the dorms. A lot of times it is because they have this contract and they need to fulfill a certain percentage of it. And they won't let them live off campus because they have to fill that percentage. They want to make sure they fulfill their contractual agreement to this private company, or they have to make up the difference, and that costs the university money. Well, if you start requiring them, now I see some of these public universities maybe getting around it by offering a virtual learning experience. So basically they're saying you got to be vaccinated to come do in-person learning on the university, but you can do computer learning if you're not vaccinated, trying to work a legal loophole saying I'm not requiring a vaccine for people to get service, to go to school. They just can't come in person, which, obviously that one, it creates an other category, which is very dangerous, creating these other categories of people who aren't getting vaccinated and then creating some visible marker for them, whether that is they go online and people go in person that aren't the dirty unvaccinated, or they can go here, or like the MLB's doing where you've got vaccinated section, unvaccinated section, just things like that. That is classist, and that is a caste system that is very dangerous. We've seen how that goes around the world. It does not go well. However, they could be getting around it that way. But the problem becomes, going back to what I was talking about, if these universities, private and public, have a guaranteed contract with these dorm room operators and providers, but then they start requiring get the vaccine, and then they don't get a high enough level of students to get vaccinated that they can't hit their guaranteed occupational levels that they're guaranteeing, it's going to create a problem for the universities. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. What if, I'm not telling you not to get vaccinated, but what if these colleges saying you're required to get vaccinated to come back in the fall? But what if come fall, only 50% of their student body that normally lives in the dorms has been vaccinated? What are they going to do? They're going to have to relent. I think because I know how the dorm room system works, especially from as long as at UK, I know how it works. I know it works elsewhere the same way too as well. Now, some of the smaller colleges operate their own dorm rooms. I know private ones sometimes do as well. But the public universities, a lot of them, especially the big ones, don't operate their own dorm rooms. So what if come fall, only 50% have been vaccinated? I think they relent. I think they're trying to get their students to become vaccinated and seeing if they get vaccinated and they come in. Now, and if they don't hit the level of vaccination they need to fulfill their contractual obligation to these private companies that are operating their dorm rooms, I think they relent. I think that's what's going to happen. They're trying to force it, but if they don't get enough people to do it, I think they blink. So, I'd encourage you guys that don't want to get it, don't get it. Wait until you see what happens, because I think they're going to lift that. Now, in the article where it's talking about these 30 universities requiring it, they mentioned how these universities, like other schools, require a slate of vaccines in order to be normally in there. And so, what's the problem with COVID? Well, the problem with COVID, vaccine, and we all need to remember this, is it is only under emergency use authorization. Now, if it's a traditional system of vaccination, it takes 6-7 years for a vaccine to be fully authorized. So it should take another 5 or 6 years before it's authorized for them to confirm it. Now, of course, like I said earlier, there's no incentive that the government has at all to speed up that process, but I think there might be. But regardless, I think these universities blink. I think their mouths are writing checks that they're financially cannot cash. That's me personally. Now, in the same thing of getting vaccinated, while Bashir was talking with private businesses to get vaccines done, which of course doesn't scream any kind of weird totalitarianism. It's not like that, they could just close these businesses, right? It's not like under emergency. You could be like, oh, you got to close. So he's talking to all these private businesses, and this way he said in his press conference, and he's encouraging them to get vaccinated. And he talks about a hospital system, which in order to try to get their staff vaccinated is offering a bonus program that's like basically if X percentage of this branch of the hospital gets vaccinated, you're at this bonus level, and if more percentage get it, you're at this bonus level. If you're at this percentage, get bonus level. Because, of course, they're trying to use this ugly part of society of peer pressure. Like, literally, the government is weaponizing peer pressure and to get vaccines done. And they're forcing these businesses to do it. And I'm saying force. They are forcing them. It is force when the implied threat is if a COVID outbreak happens, you don't get enough people vaccinated, I'm closing your butts down again. That is force. That is an implied force. You're not going to convince me otherwise. So yes, he is forcing these companies to get vaccinate their people. And so this university is responding by doing this bonus system to create peer pressure because it's ugly. It's an ugly thing about humanity. And so outside of that being an ugly thing to do, can we talk for a second about how apparently a hospital has to incentivize their staff, who I'm guessing are experts in healthcare, to get vaccinated? Can we be honest here for 1 second that maybe those people who don't want to get vaccinated aren't that selfish after all, and maybe they're pretty reasonable people, considering that we have to try to incentivize hospital workers with a bonus system for them to get vaccinated? You'd think, considering they were also the first ones offered the vaccine, if this vaccine's super safe and there's no problems and you shouldn't be worried about it and it's medically recommended, they would be doing it. But when you have nurses and doctors at a large enough scale that a hospital has to offer a bonus program to get it, maybe, just maybe, it's very reasonable for you to say, you know what, I'm going to need to ask some more questions about this vaccine. Maybe I shouldn't trust it right away, and that might be a pretty reasonable thing to say. But of course, we're the crazy people not listening to the scientists. Yet it would seem a large percentage of the science and hospitals and medical professionals agree with us. A large enough percentage are trying to incentivize it. On top of that, imagine all the people who also have already been vaccinated because of peer pressure, because they're told it's the right thing to do, or they were told to go be a role model and pushed into it. Imagine how many wouldn't have been vaccinated. I think the percentage of unvaccinated healthcare would be even higher if they just offered the vaccine, no coercion, no force, nothing, just said, here's a vaccine for COVID. Hopefully it saves your lives. But, what do I know, right? I'm just seeing the data and making a assumption, an educated guess, based upon the fact that a large percentage of hospital workers aren't getting the vaccine. Large percentage of medical staff not getting the vaccine. Large percentage of the military not getting the vaccine. Large percentages here, people, because you know what? At the end of the day, and maybe it's also that these hospital workers know, because they're not buying into the fear propaganda because they're there on the ground, they see who's dying from COVID. And they see what the comorbidities are. And they see who's not dying from COVID. And they say, well, it seems I'm not at risk. So why take this vaccine? Why take it? So anyways, that is interesting to me. Moving on here, Tennessee. I believe that's Governor Lee there. He says the emergency is over, right? Of course, I'm waiting for Governor Beshear to come out and say that he's dumb. And I love that. I love all these followers of Beshear that think Governor Beshear is somehow smarter than Indiana's governor and Tennessee's. I mean, he's just a lawyer. He's not even a doctor. But he's somehow smarter than Indiana's and Tennessee's and Virginia, and they think, well, he's just smarter and saving more people than those people are. Like, it's this assertion that somehow they want you to believe. The idea that, maybe the governor shouldn't be putting in these mandates. Maybe the curve is, flat. Maybe we should be done and over, and maybe COVID isn't an emergency anymore. They're like, oh, that's crazy. You just want people to die. Meanwhile, more and more states are ending their mask mandates, ending their COVID restrictions, but yet somehow they're just stupider than Beshear. In fact, a lot of people believe Rand Paul is stupider than Beshear. Rand Paul's a doctor. Yeah, he may be an eye doctor. But Beshear's a lawyer. Like, okay, so you got two people in a room giving you advice on a medical issue. And let's say, let's choose something crazy. Cancer, okay? Do you listen to the eye surgeon, who's a doctor, who went to medical school, and yeah, he specialized in eye surgery, but he went to medical school? Or do you trust the lawyer who, in his defense, he does have a Juris Doctorate, which is a JD, which is a lawyer degree. So if somebody's giving you advice, eye doctor, lawyer, on a medical thing, no matter what the medical thing is, who are you going to go with? I personally am going to go with the one who has a, MD. But, whatever. What do I know, right? So it's crazy to me that they sit there and these followers it is a cult. They literally believe Beshear's the savior, and they're in the minority. I'm telling you guys, pay attention to all these things coming out. I mean, WKYT putting out poll after poll that's showing people want the mask mandate over. People don't want to get vaccinated. There was literally a poll they put out that said, out of people not getting vaccinated now, will you get vaccinated? Only 25% out of all the people they talked to said, yeah, I'm going to go get vaccinated. I just haven't gotten around to it. And that's being asked, that's with social pressure. I bet you out of that 25%, less than 5% actually get around to it. They're just saying that because they don't want to embarrass themselves with the social pressure. But, anyways, Tennessee says the emergency's over. And, all right, Tennessee says the emergency's over. And the ability, and that removes the ability for the counties to require masks. So if he ends the emergency, and he says it's a managed health situation, now these counties can't require masks. And, I think we should talk about masks for a second. I do want to talk about it. I made a post about it earlier today where I said, these people out here wearing masks for a year thinking it has no negative effects. It's kind of a foolish thing to think. What's funny is anybody who's familiar with OSHA requirements. See, lead and asbestos is bigger particles, bigger microns, whatever it's called, around than COVID is. I think we know that, right? Lead and asbestos is bigger. And so if you're doing lead or asbestos abatement, if you're removing those things, OSHA, these masks, these cloth masks, these non-medical grade, these medical masks even, I think even N95 masks, OSHA would not approve them to be used for lead and asbestos abatement. They wouldn't pass OSHA requirements to protect yourselves from molecules that are much, much larger. But yet they want to pretend you putting on a bandana is saving the world. And it's not. And it is clearly about compliance. We all know, they all know sure well enough that nobody out there is following safe mask procedures. They drop the thing on the ground, they slap it on their face because they're doing it because they are told to. And I hold to you this, if you get up, you throw on your mask, and you leave your house, you're putting on your mask because you're afraid of the government, not because you're afraid of COVID, because if you're afraid of COVID, you would stay home. It is 2021. You do not need to leave your house if you don't want to. Well, that's unrealistic. I got to live my life. So I need to wear a mask when I leave my house. It's unrealistic for you to tell me to stay home if I'm afraid of COVID. Yeah, and it's unrealistic to ask small business owners to close and lose everything so you can still go to the grocery store if you're afraid of COVID. That's ridiculous. And so, you know what? You're putting on the mask. You try to pretend it is the COVID, whatever. You try to pretend and tell me you're afraid of COVID all you want to. If you're that afraid, you keep your butt at home. But you're not. You're slapping on your bandana, putting that old virtue signal star right on the side of your cheek, and you're walking out that door real proud of yourself, saying, I am doing something. Taking your picture of your vaccine card. You're not afraid of COVID. If you were, you'd stay home. You're not walking around outside with a mask on because you're afraid of COVID. You're doing it because you're told to. And you think, this is what I do to stay safe. It's ridiculous. Start thinking for yourselves. I think that's part of the problem. And I think that's the issue. It does not take a genius to realize the mask mandates suck. And so when people are like, it's just a mask, get over it. It's not just a mask. It's a thought process that something we all know is ridiculous. Look me in the eyes, Dr. Fauci, and tell me that a person putting on a mask they just dropped on the ground on their face is good, or a mask they haven't washed for days is good. And you know that's what they're doing, and you know that's bad, and you know that might be worse for them than COVID. Look me in the eyes and say that. But you can't. And then they act like, and so the mask mandate's a problem and an issue. Not even as much because of tyranny. It's a pretty soft tyranny. It is a tyranny, but it's a soft tyranny. But it's more because there is literally, at this point, zero science behind it. There's zero science. It is, and that's what's scary about the mask mandate to me, is the amount of people willing to throw out their common sense because they were told to do this. You're throwing out your common sense if you believe wearing a mask for a year was safe. You know you've only been wearing that mask in case you've had COVID and been infectious, which you're only infectious for like a week at some point over the last year and a half, and you didn't know it. Just saying, do you know that's why you're wearing it? Do you realize that still or no? You haven't. You haven't. So you've gotten rid of your common sense of saying this is clearly bad. Common sense of saying a bandana is saving you from COVID when it can't even save you from sawdust, which is much bigger than COVID. And wearing it without washing it all day, picking up a mask with your dirty hands, and then putting it on your face. The mask mandate to me isn't as much of a problem about tyranny as it is that people are not thinking with their common sense. And I hate it because it is common sense. You don't need to be a genius in this. It is common sense that certainly a cloth mask, a bandana, one of these medical blue masks don't work and actually cause more issues. I'm just saying. Regardless, that's where I'm coming from. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Remember, guys, share this out. It's a podcast, too. Share the podcast. Take a link to the podcast. Okay, there on Spotify, Apple, what have you. And then post it on your Facebook. Share it out there for me. Thank you guys so much. Remember, Sunday, 2 o'clock, Governor's Mansion. We are protesting. Come by Brewed Coffee Shop. Come join us. Get a cup of coffee. Buy some offline. Brewedco.com, BREWCO.com. You can go to donate.brewedco.com and just give me some money. You just want to give me money? You're still like, Andrew, I like what you do, and I want to give you some money. Give me some money. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing it out.